Hey, what's up, internet world? Welcome to Powerverse. I am your host, the Golden Mike from the North, Balamau Power. Now, this podcast was created in response to our pivot against the pandemic COVID-19 impacts. Here, we get to explore creative arts businesses, empowering and inspiring stories from our communities of First Nations people across the country. So I hope you enjoy these episodes. And like we always say here in Powerverse, stay inspired, stay empowered, and stay connected. Yes, sir. Welcome to Power Circle, the platform where we speak to community members, entrepreneurs, artists, and creatives. I'm your host, Balamau Power, and joining me from the black table, I got a deadly sister, Julieanne Lambourne. Sister, thank you very much for being here on at the table with me.
Thank you, Bala. Thank you for having me.
So good. You're very familiar here with the table. So
yes.
And we're going to get into some yarns. But before we do at the table, we always introduce our guests. Proper way, cultural way, if you're able to tell us your mob and your background.
Well, so I'm a Torres Strait Islander woman. Mother's is from Darnley Island and mother's father is from Mabiorg Island, Western Torres Strait, but born in Cairns.
Born in Cairns. Deadly, beautiful Gimoy country. So yeah, look, your story and your journey is very, very inspiring. Especially for like women in business, which we will get into. But I wouldn't mind going back to the beginning of your journey, just so people can get context and get to know you a bit better. If I can speak good English.
Wow.
Sorry, English is our third language.
Well, we mix between both, so we're all good. Probably way back, I think it's probably important for people to know way back where we come from and how we got to where we are today and all the triumphs we had to go through to get through. So born in Cairns, mother was brought down from Thursday Island when she was 3 and was completely disconnected from the islands and was family down here and things like that, but grew up very hard. They were moved on to a reserve in Cairns, and where people lived on the outcast, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. In Cairns here, and so weren't seen as part of society, I guess, because they were the outcast. So because of all of those adversities and being disconnected, and sort of created their own trauma from that as well, and apart from being Torres Strait Islander people. So Mum met my father, and they come together, but then we grew up very dysfunctional, very dysfunctional. I was lived in Murray Street, the famous Murray Street in Cairns, and grew into a life of, I always tell people it's from the womb. Dysfunction starts from the womb, and alcohol and family violence and everything you can think of that goes with that was how we were born into the world. And, with things that come with that is, you have real lack of education and you don't quite fit because you are walking in a world you don't understand. Yeah. Because, for me, I'm fair-skinned but very prominent featured. So you don't fit in the white world and you don't fit in the black world. Yes. You actually don't really fit anywhere. And and that's hard too, as well, growing up like that. And an identity is a hard thing because you don't know who you are. Absolutely. You understand who you are, but because you don't fit, you really walk in worlds that you don't understand. And plus, I had learning difficulties and physical problems. I had sight issues, and I was sent away from home as well to a home and for medical treatment and stuff like that. So very much your mind is institutionalized to different things, and didn't finish high school, left before I finished grade 10, because school didn't have anything for me. And plus we were always branded, not in the good class of people. Yes. Putting it in a different terminology, I guess, but we were always looked down upon and things like that. Didn't realise, I left and worked, I left school and always worked though, from the age of 14 and out of home at 14 as well.
Yeah.
So
you left at 14?
I did. I left school at 14 and I moved out of home as well ran from home because you run from dysfunction.
Yes.
And, but then also my sister got sick and got given my first child when I was almost 15.
Wow.
So through traditional adoption, because she was sick, so have a child, and I had her daughter from when she was 2 years old. So you're kind of bumbling through life, Your only knownhood of parenthood is what you've seen of your parents. And the other thing too is we didn't have we had extended family and many.
Yes.
But we didn't have the structure of family.
Yes.
Because
important.
It's so important. And, the extended family we knew was all around alcohol and violence.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you take that in to become a parent yourself at such a young age, and things like that. But then as I started to get a little bit older, I still went through so many trials and triumphs of my own and, my own issues with addiction and my own issues with mental health, and things like that. But always seemed to maintain work. I always was able to keep working and, as I got older, I wanted to do things differently. I didn't want to keep making the same mistakes.
Wow, it's just a powerful story. There's a lot of things that, if you don't mind, like this part of the journey, really, I feel is a powerful story to share. And thank you very much for being open and honest with that. And I'm sure some people out there who's going to be following can I resemble with it and find some courage and strength to move through. And I go back where you were talking about the dysfunction in the family. I mean, coming from the Torres Strait as well, it was socialism and social class, how they clustered our people together, and we were institutionalized and being told. As a society, as a group of people, that you're less than nothing. Wow. I mean, prior to 1967, we were flora and fauna, right? And not even recognized in our country. But with that structure, we're talking when you really talk about the social class within our people, about the color of the skin, the outcast, that's real and it's still real today. And how did you? You kind of touched on it, but how did you deal with that then? Like at that time when you were finding the complexity and the struggle with just being accepted in as a person within any of those circles, because being an outcast is difficult at that young age.
Very difficult, and it was very difficult because my family. Mum was also outcasted in her family because she had a different father as well, and she was the fairest out of 13 children with no white influence at all. There was a Philippine influence in there, but so she didn't quite fit, and my siblings are all multicolored as well. So I guess, and plus being the second youngest out of 7 and going through abuse and sexual abuse, I was a very introverted child. I can say that now, but very closed off, because you learn to become a silent child because you don't want to attract attention.
Yes.
And things like that. And I don't actually know how I got through all of those years looking back. But there's obviously a strength and resilience that is somehow born inside of you to overcome that, and somehow spiritually that comes through to keep you going. Sometimes you get to different points in your life where you question your life and you try to even take your own life because you don't fit anywhere and you can't shut down the things of
that
trauma.
Happens, and it's real. It's
real. Absolutely.
Still today in 2020.
Definitely, and I've educated myself a lot over the years in realizing the importance of from 0 to 4 in how your brain develops. And that part of your life, and what you are giving, what people are giving to their children is what they will carry through for the rest of their life. So I guess I'm not really sure. I just kept moving along in life and doing jobs, and people thought that I was even really shy into my teens, and working, and I still don't know where the confidence came from, to tell you the truth. I just sort of, as I moved on in life, and realised, because I also thought that I was really dumb. Because I struggled so much at school, having sight issues and learning difficulties, and the way we process information, and You know, a lot of that comes from growing up the way you do and trauma, you know, and the way your brain processes things. So I really automatically thought I was just really dumb as well. But I've come to realise that nobody is dumb at all, you know, regardless of their circumstances. But we tell ourselves that, but society tells ourselves
Absolutely.
that.
And
Education tells us, education tells us
Yes.
that. When I left, one of my teachers said to me, "I'm not surprised you're leaving, you don't fit, you know, you don't fit in the school." You know, so then you automatically think again, I'm dumb, I don't know anything. You know, and when you can't see properly and things like that, then you automatically think that you don't mean anything to the world as well. So,
And at this time, like in our journey coming up, there was no support structure or support, you know, groups that you can go to, right? And I don't know from your experience if there was. I mean, how did you try to seek out support or try to?
No, because I didn't, because I had no idea of anything. Like, my father worked, but he was a very stern, discipline your kids like you discipline your dog. Love him, don't get me wrong, love him now and have built a really solid relationship. And Mum was so caught up in her own trauma and her own issues around alcohol and violence. You don't have any role models. And a lot of people talk about, well, I had a grandmother, I had an auntie, I had nothing. There was no role models at all in our lives, you know, or someone to look up to or anything like that. And, you know, and so you don't know their support. You wouldn't even know where to ask or how to ask. So, and because you don't want attention, then you don't come forward and ask those things. And that sort of started to build the foundation of why I did what I've done for a long time.
Yes.
To help support, you know, our mob and any mob that needs the support, and to help build those structures around them to help them. And that's come from a place of having nothing.
Having nothing, yes.
Having nothing.
And you've done some amazing work. I mean, your journey, which we will get into.
Wow.
I can't wait to get into that side. But having this context and giving the understanding of the background now shows why why you built and created what you have, because of you know, out of necessity and need for our community, and we still need it even in 2020.
Yes.
And this can extend outside of even our own people to the broader community, which we will get into as well. Interesting. Another topic I want to touch on, if you don't mind, we go into it, where you were talking about the addiction and the introduction to substance. This place is close to me because, you know, I was introduced to that particular world at 11, you know, a very young age. And when you don't know, and it's so accessible within your community and you have no context around it, it becomes a big part of your life. And there's been a personal struggle with myself with these type of influence. And if it's all you see, you think this is the norm.
That's right.
You know, when you remove from that society, they to understand the psychological impacts it has, the emotional, spiritual impacts it has, societal impacts, and the judgment that comes with it.
Wow.
It becomes a difficult challenge, especially when you're also taught as being a First Nations person, a black person in this country, that that's your stigma, that's what you are. You'll always be this.
Wow.
But your journey and story and experiences around that, because it was, you know, it was very present. It's still very present today.
Yes, still very present. And, you know, and alcohol, like, for us was, you know, like, because it was from the womb, you know, that's all we ever knew, you know, was the drinking and the violence. And I didn't actually start drinking. Believe it, I hated anything to do with alcohol for a long time, and didn't start to drink, you know, really till I was about 16, you know, a little bit here and there, but, you know, I just wanted nothing to do with it because of what I'd seen. But then once, you know, I think it was 16 and was introduced to alcohol, that's when it started from there, you know, and the party lifestyle. But the thing is, what you're trying to do is you're trying to suppress the emotion and the trauma.
Yes.
So, and you find you can do that when you can drink. And, you know, and I had such a large capacity coming from an alcoholic family, whether we believe it or not. It's genealogy, it's DNA, you know, it's all the things that don't belong seem to fit, you know, and then, you know, my capacity to drink was so big. And I still always worked, though, you know. So I tell everyone that I was a functioning alcoholic.
Yes.
Because people think you're alcoholics, so you're people that sit in the park or sit in the pub. But the large amount of people that were like me was a functioning alcoholic.
Yes.
Who would work but would still drink. The other thing I'd realised as I got older was I had an intense anger.
Yes.
And I hated the world, and I hated everyone in it that had hurt me. And so therefore that anger came out while I drank.
Yes.
So, but it was always everyone else's fault, you see, with the anger. And I always laugh and tell people I've been kicked out of just about every pub in far north Queensland.
We kind of wear that as a matter of honor, like, it's like, I've been kicked out of that pub.
Oh, no, it's like so shame when I look back at some of the stories and think, oh my gosh, always dressed up to the nines.
Yeah.
Just come from work. But they're brawling in nightclub, a bar or whatever, because someone said the wrong thing or someone looked at me the wrong way or things like that, which is not great. Like, it's nothing, and I tell people it's not, because we actually have no right to put our hand on anybody else.
Yes,
at
absolutely.
all. But violence is also something that's ingrained to you from birth, from the womb, because that's all you see. Because, I used to talk when people come over and they're all having a party, but there's always a fight.
Yes.
There's always severe domestic violence and family violence, always. So it becomes it's a normalised.
It is.
It is.
Very normalised.
And we expect them to be treated like that and to treat others like that.
Yes.
Because the other thing is you're actually born to fight for yourself. Everything you go through, you have to fight for. And being the second youngest, being young, and a girl and not fitting. So you're always fighting for who you are, or you're fighting for something, or because we have no food, you're always fighting for something, in the neighbourhood or in school or, and things like that. And I never got kicked out of school. I left, but a couple of times I nearly got kicked out. But we were actually in school, we were fighting for the underdog, the person who got picked on so much that we would find. And therefore we would retaliate to protect that person, because I guess even back then we had a connection with that person.
Yes.
To protect them, because we weren't protected, as children and things like that. But the struggle with alcohol and addiction, I started using drugs I think I was about 18 when I was introduced to drugs and realised the more alcohol I would drink and the more drugs I would take would numb my brain.
Yes.
And switch down for a little while so I didn't have to think about those things. But then that also gave you Dutch courage to kill yourself. That's putting it plain.
Very true.
It's very true, because then because then you're left again by yourself.
Yes.
Because your brain doesn't stop. It
doesn't.
Just numbs.
That is very true.
The chatter is still there. It doesn't stop. And then the only way you think you can stop this and stop your heart is to just finish. That's
and it becomes an option, right?
It's a real option.
It becomes a viable option. It's real. And, we really want to stress here that we're about support, and anybody who's going through those thoughts, if you're listening to this, please speak up and reach out. There's a lot of support out there now.
There is.
It is suicide is an epidemic that's global.
It is.
My heart breaks every time I travel to a different country and I can see and hear the stories. I'm like, I thought it was just us.
Yes.
But it's global, and when your mind keeps speaking and you don't know how to deal with that and that feeling, and especially when you're on alcohol, heightens everything and it magnifies it. And from personal experience, I share the same similar story to yours, and thank you for sharing it. This is the process of the healing, right? We were able to make amends and forgive that part of life and forgive ourselves. So how did when was the point that you found that cross path where something's got to change? It was
interesting. It was when I think about that and I talk about that, when was that? And I get asked that, when was that point? Actually, I was raped when I was 21 and wanted to do something different. So I went to the police. Situated, people I knew could have fixed the situation, but I didn't want to. I actually wanted to do the first time something different. So I went to the police and went through a terrible process of the court system, and all of those things. But they introduced me to a centre called the Rape Crisis Centre. And went and spoke to her, who's a very dear friend of mine now, Annie Roberts. But she was the first one who ever started to ask me questions about how I grew up. And because you don't talk about that. That's the other thing with us mob. Yeah. It's taboo to talk about things. No, we don't talk about that because we're strong people. We're cultural people. We're this, we're that. We don't talk about the no good things. So there was no opportunity to talk about those things, and it's a hidden past back then. So then she started to talk about those things, and I guess it's, that sort of started to make me realise that what I went through and so many others have been through is not good.
No.
And that influenced so much. So it was that process of going through that, even though it was a terrible process, but that sort of started the healing process of talking through those things. And, went through the whole thing, and the man got found guilty and went to jail. But I made a decision then to give up my identity to go on TV and to talk about my story, because it became a national case back then in the 90s, around the time of date rape. So, and two things for that, because we're taught to be shame as well. That's another thing. I try to debunk the myth now, because we are taught to be shame. Yes. And we don't come out, we don't talk about these things. And when I talked through the counsellor, I said, no, I want people to know my story. I had to go to court, had my identity revoked, because they protect your identity. And the judge was harsh, but for a reason, and actually went on a current affair and told my story. And, it was interesting, a lot of people judged me and said that I should have went to jail because of the circumstances and things like that. But there was more positive, and it actually there were so many women. So the rape crisis hotline just went through the roof. Women had heard this story all over Australia. And so they were coming forward and starting to talk about their own things that had happened to them. Yes. So out of all of the negative, the positive outweighed that. I still didn't stop drinking for a long time, because it's a long process to go through. And then one day I just thought, I don't want to live this life anymore. I don't want to subject the children that were coming into my life to this lifestyle anymore, And the thing is, there were two sides to me, because I had a career as well, and it was, working for the government, and then had this other side to me as well, and you're trying to balance those worlds. But then just one day thought, I just can't do this anymore. Yes. And started to want to learn to be different.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very deep and powerful and very honest. And your bravery has, I believe now, has helped a lot of other people be able to come to terms with that and come forward. Because that is not accepted within our society or any society. You shouldn't be able to, you should never harm a person. And I really don't like that anybody who inflicts any pain or harm on any other individual, and taking something like that is very, very, it's wrong. Wow. It is very wrong. I know people out there who will be watching would have similar experiences, whether it be a friend or personal. Is there anything that you can share with them to give them the courage to be able to, come forward and seek some guidance?
Just to know, whether it's from childhood as an adult, like none of it is what happens to you is your fault. None of it is, even as a child, it's not your fault because you're innocent, and people talk about situations, circumstance, and children often made to feel it is their fault. And as an adult, the thing is, it is not. If you're in a certain situation like that, as much as it's shame and you feel terrible about yourself and what's happened, seek out help. There's so much help, and it's confidential help. Yes. Not everyone will do what I did. That was my choice to do those things. Yes. And it also is, I realised a long time ago that my story now is for other people to hear that. And, seek out, even if you were to ring a confidential telephone line. Because once you start to share the stuff that's inside of your heart and inside of your mind, that's what starts the healing process, because you stop internalizing that, and keeping it inside, which eats you up. It will eat you up for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not. But try and find someone that you can talk to, and it may take a couple of times. Yes, it may do. Because
it's so close, and that's not something that's easily an easy discussion.
It's the hardest discussion in the world.
Yes, and thank you very much for sharing yours. It's that's very powerful. You're a strong sister. I'll get a hold hand for that, sister. Where do we go from here? Sorry, let's take a moment. And I'm like, wow, that's so, wow. It was an interesting thing. We had a conversation the other night, and we've known each other for a while, but there was this one phrase which I believe is so true and prevalent, and this is in every society, but growing up in our culture, there's this term, learned behavior.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of these behaviors are inherited.
Yes.
Traits, beliefs are inherited. Can you really touch a bit more on your perspective of learned behavior? Because through your work, you've come across experiences that in 2020, in this day and age, similar things are still happening.
Wow.
In communities, even in mainstream society. This notion of learned behavior, but I didn't know that until I was like, it was only like maybe 4 years ago.
Wow.
To understand that things that my behaviors in life, even over this last few years, a lot of it was inherited.
Wow.
It's all learned behavior.
Wow. Learned behavior, like the different parts I said to you about from 0 to 4 is when our brain starts to really learn things about who we are or where we belong and how do we feel love and things like that. And a lot of our learned behaviors, First Nations people, we're talking thousands of years that we have learned to be a certain way and learned to behave a certain way and learned to accept a certain way, and we've adapted those ways. To give you an example, just one of them, I talk about shame because all those years we weren't allowed to talk language. A lot of people were dispossessed from their land, and that's the same with even like my own mother being dispossessed and brought down here. Not having that. And the thing is, because of that, it introduced a whole race of feeling of shame, and we can't say that and we can't do that. And we get shame as being embarrassed of who you are or, and how you react and how you act as well. But I tell people that is a learned behaviour.
Yes.
And we aren't a people of shame. How can people who've lived 60 oldest cultures in the world?
Yes.
How can we be a people of shame? And I understand that we are taught that, and that's a learnt behaviour. But we've also taken that and we wear it like a big jacket, that jacket of shame. And then we say to our children, don't do that, that's shame. Don't act like that, that's shame.
Yeah.
Don't shame. So then those children grow up to also be shame and not come forward and to do things. And the other thing about the violent stuff, when you see that, the family violence, we learn that that's okay.
Yeah.
We learn that that's the way you treat people. We learn that's the way that, either women, and it's a lot more women that do have domestic violence, but there's also men that I've seen as well. My mother was severely violent and she didn't care. I always say that if Dad didn't keep a roof over her head, we'd be living in the park because my mother was one that was stripped down to nothing and stand up and fight full on in the street. So you learn that, and that seems to become a normalised behaviour. That's a learnt behaviour, that you can fight and you can beat anyone who you think or perceive is doing wrong by you.
Yes.
And it's those things like that, like even with the sexual abuse, that also is there's different levels of abuse, and I explain this only because I've had to educate myself on abuse. There's different, with family abuse and knowing a sexualized behavior. And a lot more of our children are actually doing things that aren't right because they've learned about sexualized behavior. It's different to pedophilia. That's a separate issue over here. Sexualized behavior is when all you know is sex. If you're in an overcrowded house and people are having sex, it's an open thing.
Yes.
It's wrong when a family member then is sexualizing you by abusing you. Then you take that as a normalised behaviour. And then you start to realise with all of that sexualised behaviour that then that becomes a normal thinking. That not that you're going to abuse children, that doesn't normally happen, but you use that and you think sexualised behaviour is how you get things and how you behave and how you treat people, even as an adult, because that's all you know of what to do. So it's all of those things. It's even the same with smoking, cigarettes. If that's all you've grown up with, That's the majority of the thing is that's what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
Luckily for me, I never took up smoking cigarettes because I hated it so much.
Yes.
But it is a normal pattern of behaviour. It is a normal way that people learn these things. And I always tell people about swearing because I used to have the foulest mouth in the world, like proper no good, like proper, and because...
We invent words.
Well, we invent words. We've got our own words.
Oh, my God.
Because, and you're floating in between, English, Creole, bit of language over here. But then when them are wild, all them words come out, proper. So you take on those words too.
I was just thinking about my family. Every second word is a profane word.
It is.
I tell a joke when I was up till 5 years old. I thought my name was F-head.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, my name's Patrick. But yeah.
True God, I know. So you see how they all become learned behaviours.
Yeah.
And then you adapt that language as well,
Yeah.
But, I guess for like us who have come, coming through, is that we can now walk in so many worlds.
Yes.
And I can be sitting at a board table, which I do, or sitting with a minister, doesn't matter, and I'll immediately adapt the way I talk.
Yes.
Immediately, because we've learned how to walk through those words. But when we started the business years ago, one fellow was with us, he said to me, can you please just speak English? When I'm presenting, just speak English. Because as we relax, then our language changes.
Sometimes I don't pick it up. And I see when I'm speaking to someone who's not from the culture, they watch, she's like, sounds cool, but I don't know what you said.
Or so we'll be talking like this, and we were talking speaking. Anyway, and then I'll stop and then I'll interpret. That means this. Or I could be presenting, I was speaking in front of 300 people the start of the year. And I was talking about, life growing up, and I said something in Creole, and then I said, sorry about that, that means this.
So we're educating you on the fly. That's okay. That's what we're doing.
Right. True God, yeah.
Wow. No, thank you. Now, and your story is very powerful. Knowing that now, that's we're gonna come into the next part when you created your business, coming into your career, and now building a space through a business where out of these experiences where you can help, and now start offering the support to people, right? So the business that you did create was an organization, Envision.
Yes.
How did that come about? What was the seed for that?
Yeah, well, I worked for the government for about 23 years in different departments and stepped out a couple of times working in social services. And then I came back into the government. And we were looking at employment programs because I love employment because that's about ending disparity, is employment and jobs. And we were working with a corporate client, and I was the government. And I'm like, you don't get what's missing. It's all that support structure. So we, talked to an Indigenous organisation and said to them, would you be interested? So me and the blackfellas got together and we wrote the program ourselves, from that black lens, from that cultural lens of how to run a program, to have sustain people into those jobs and keep them there. Anyway, so when I went to the organisation and said, this is what we're looking at, we've got the corporate, they're offering all these jobs. They said to me, this is before we started, well, why can't you manage the program?
Wow, okay.
And I said to them, because at that I loved what I was doing in the government because it was very community-based. I was 80% in the field, doing all that stuff with mob. And I said to them, I don't know.
Question, I'll get back to you.
I worked 9 months of the year. I have flexible working hours. I had a lot of money, good money, all that sort of stuff. So it took me about 3 months to decide, and I decided, all right, rubber meets the road. Step back out of the government now. Yes. And if you really are driven by this, by making these changes for mob, then you'll go and do it. So I did. And started the program as one of the most successful programs in Australia because we employed so many people.
Yes.
Through this, and we had a finish rate of 100% and 100% into jobs.
That is unheard of. I come from the job service provider background as well. It's very hard, offering support and mentoring just to get people to actually get into the process of getting to a job.
Yes.
There's a lot of failures that happen in there.
Many.
You're looking at a failure rate of maybe 80%.
Yes.
80 to 90%. So
Yeah.
having 100% outcome, that's phenomenal.
And we were still retaining them in their jobs at 3 and 6 months at 85%.
Wow.
You know, because it's, I guess, coming from lived experience. So that you debunk every myth
Yes.
and every excuse.
Yes.
But you have to work with those people and work and scaffold them with mentoring and support
Yes.
structures, as well as not taking their rubbish.
Yes.
Because of what they've been through.
Yes.
You know, and walking them through. I remember having a conversation with this woman. She was a mature age woman, and I'm in Maya shopping, right, after hours. And she's on the phone crying, I'm going to leave you, F and F and F. And you know, and all this sort of stuff. And I've got my head inside this big thing of clothes, so people can't hear me. Going, you're not going to leave. Stop being so gammon. You know you've got this. You know, sissy, come on, don't be like that. But I've talked her through for about 15 minutes, and she turned up the next day.
Fantastic.
And she's still working there.
Wow.
10 years later.
Today,
still
wow.
see her there.
There
And
you
I always
go.
look at her, and she always smiles because she knows that, you know, I didn't take any of her stuff. Then another girl ring me up, and she reckoned, I can't come in tomorrow. My clothes aren't washed. I haven't got money for a washing machine. I reckon, come on, you haven't got a sink? You haven't got soap?
We used to do that. Right? Go to the creek and wash our clothes in the creek.
Don't tell me about washing machine.
I didn't know what a washing machine
Well,
till I was
that's
15.
I reckon you go and wash the thing. I said, you got a ceiling fan? I said, I know you do, because you live in a flat. Anyway, so she was there the next morning.
This is how, what do you call it? That's how resourceful we are.
That's right.
We'll create something out of nothing. It's so
Proper.
good.
Yeah. But that, stepping out of that, it actually gave me a look into how the corporate employment worked. And I thought, oh my gosh, you people are from another planet. You don't suburb, you don't understand mob and, you know, what we have to do. You just want your outcome so you look good for your reconciliation action plan.
Numbers, that's all it is.
That's it, you know.
Numbers and processes.
That's right. And the organisation I was working for, I thought, oh my gosh, how can you people work like this, you know? Anyway, and so after a year of it was successful and it was all that, but there were so many issues that I thought I just can't do it. I can't align with certain ethics and values because my ethics and values are so important to me.
Yes.
And I thought I can't do this. And I went to, and then we were, like I was bringing in all of this extra work, $250,000 worth of contract work outside a government contract. Anyway, and they didn't want that because they didn't want those type of people, which is a really sorry one, you know, homeless people and drug addiction. That Anyway, so I went to one of our fee-for-service and I said to her, look, I'm sorry, I'm leaving, you know. And she's like, oh, you know, we came because, you know, of your passion and all this sort of stuff. She said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm really not really sure. You know, I probably would have went back to government because always a safe option. Safe option, just go back to government. Anyway, she said to me, why don't you go into business for yourself? And, you know, I said, oh, she goes, if you do, I'll follow you. Anyway, so we went, and there was about 5 of us at that stage, 4 or 5, and we, you know, all sort of thinking what we were going to do and where we were going to go, you know, the same organisation, a couple of others. And then we thought, well, why not? Why not give it a go?
Yes.
You know, so we went through the process of setting up. We thought we'd set up, it's really funny, we thought we'd set up as a not-for-profit charity because everyone would want to donate to blackfellas.
Yes.
That's not the case.
No. That's a myth. That's a huge myth.
That's a huge myth. We thought everyone would then we thought everyone would want to work for blackfellas.
Yes.
But that's a myth too.
Yes.
Not everyone wants to work, you know. And we all had really strong history and skill and expertise. But people didn't know the business. They knew you, but didn't know the business. Anyway, we set up the organisation and we came back to her and said to her, you know, we're set up, here's our registration, done all that. And she gave us our first contract. So she followed through with what she was saying.
Fantastic.
But, you know, in the lead up, you know, with business, it's not easy. But we worked in shopping centres for about 4 or 5 months because we were all working from our homes. It was around the period of time in Cairns when it's so hot. So we got free aircon.
Yeah.
we got free Wi-Fi in the shopping centres. And, you know, we looked real deadly because we just met everyone in a coffee shop for a meeting.
That's it.
You know, and one day we were sitting in the DFO for 6 hours. And I said to them, we can't keep doing this because we're about to get people, you know, we're starting to get the flow through. Anyway, so we're there looking around, and I'm a strategic person. Me and, you know, the fellow, one of the co-founders, Nick, walking around, we looked at sites, we're like, and we're off there solving the world's problems. We can do this and we can do that. And then we got the finance people crunching the numbers. And it was so funny. They're like, what are you going to do about phones? I said, we'll just get one handset, we'll pass it around. That's how
this what you call bootstrapping, man. That's you gotta start from the scratch.
Because you've got no idea about business and what's required in business. Anyway, so we offer shared with someone, and we were going past it. We had the option of sharing with him, and he wasn't going to charge us rent, and we'd help him with his business, and things like that. But unfortunately, we did everything we could, but we couldn't bring it back for him. Yeah. But we still had our business, and it was really starting to function. And I was driving, and I knew of an office that we knew of, and they did the wrong thing and fled the country. And I thought, I wonder what was happening with that office. Anyway, so we went up, and there was a big sign from the liquidators, and we rang him up and said to him, I said, we're just looking for a premise, and he said to us, everything is for sale. Biggest location, everything's for sale. And he said, why don't you put in an offer? And I said, it'd be a stupid offer because we started with our own money.
Yes.
Everything, even though we got a contract, didn't mean we get thousands of dollars. Yes. They're milestone payments.
That's it,
so everything was our own money. So once we'd absorbed, I'd spent all the money that I had saved in credit cards, max credit cards, for the business because we were so passionate about it. And he said to me, just put in an offer. And I said, it'll be a stupid offer because it's our own money,
Yes.
Anyway, we come back, so we had a talk, and we offered him $4,000 for like all the stuff where Envision was. And he says, have you got any more money? So we come back, we rang up this fellow who wanted to partner with us. We said, we're trying to do this. Are you interested in chucking in some money? We'll give you a tax deductible receipt because we're a registered charity. Yes. So he gave us $1,000. So we went back with the $5,000, and they said yes. So we bought $80,000 worth of stuff for $5,000.
There you go, creating opportunities, and I think being in the right place and being able to just ask.
Yes, and that's it. See, so you have to. That's what I mean by dying to shame, because whether you're in business or whatever, you have to die to shame.
Yes.
Because you have to, if you believe in yourself so much or believe what you're doing, then you die to shame, and you have to be very forthright.
Yes.
And not everyone has that ability either, but it comes as you build confidence in yourself, your product. So, we rang up the owner of the building and had a yarn with him. And he actually said, I said, well, how much is it? It was something like $2,500 a week.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do that. It's a massive building, but it'll sink our business. He said, how much can you pay? I said, $500.
Confidently, that's what I said.
Well, I said to him, first I said 0 until the 30th of June, and then $500. Yeah. And he just looked at me, he went away. I'm thinking, that's not going to happen. So then I'm pouring in my head, what are we going to do with all this stuff? You're talking offers full.
Yes.
Anyway, and he came back and he said, I really liked your honesty, because he was ripped off. Really love your honesty. And he said, yes. So we moved in there.
Honesty goes a long way.
Yes.
To be able, and having that communication, and I think from my lessons in life, learning that once you are able to be honest and speak, people will see that. Like, you can see when a government person approaches, and you can see right through all the BS. And that process, that's profound, because I know that there's going to be a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs and a lot of sole traders and people in business out there who has this romanticized idea of this is how business goes. You jump into it and don't see that there's a grind that happens. In that first part, working out of like the shopping centers as your office building, what was some of the key valuable things that you got out of the experience that you carry today? Yeah,
it was interesting because we were so driven and passionate, because everything we built on that business of Envision was about helping others. And it was from taking all of our own lived experience plus our skill and expertise and knowledge of building things we knew were going to work. And we didn't care how or what we did.
Yes.
We were happy that, we could take people out for a coffee or we could meet in those locations. But the thing was, because we had to build it ourselves.
Yes.
We had to build from nothing. It was like build nothing into something, and that's a real principle for us as people, because we often come from nothing.
Very
and we're
true.
taught deficit. We're taught deficit, nothing, and it's coming from that of nothing and just ourselves and just almost crawling through the process.
Yes.
But not losing our vision of what we wanted to do, and that was in business too. I mean, I could have been a multi-millionaire if I wanted to partner with some of the people that wanted to. but you know straight away what they're after.
Yes.
You know, and you can't drop your values for anyone.
Absolutely.
You know, so it was coming from that model of, you know, just believing in ourselves. You know, it was difficult. It was very hard, you know, getting to that point and in business, but we just really believed in what we were doing and we just kept moving through regardless.
Fantastic. That's powerful. I mean, and one curious question I want to ask during that first part of the process. So I usually look at the first 6 to 8 months.
Yes.
The first year is very critical because that's when a lot of personal tests will come in.
Yes.
I'm a type of person, my nature, I know myself well enough that when I'm locked in on an idea, it's going to happen.
Yes.
Was there any moments of doubt or things that could have swayed you in there? And how did you overcome that?
Well, probably not in that first 6 to 8 months because we were all so driven. We all could have went and got jobs and earned lots of money, but we knew that what we had would work.
Yes.
And we had to believe in ourselves. And, you know, and plus for me, I had a family and I had a mortgage. I had all of those things.
Those factors is like more motivation, right?
All of those things. And I was the breadwinner. I was the bring home the bacon woman, you know?
Yeah.
And I had to worry about those things, you know, about not having money for my children and for the house and all those things, you know, but we just kept moving through. And I think there has been doubt, not really doubt, but you get to stages in your business where you hit the wall.
Yes, it's a plateau that...
Gosh, yeah. And I remember, you know, and on the surface, the business looked so deadly, but we were business people. We're running a business and not knowing about business. We were from a government mindset. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. Working with the government for a long time institutionalise your thinking on how you do business. And, you know, and realise that we actually didn't know how to do business. And the other interesting factor was, like, you know, we're all appointed positions. Yep. But you're very, very professional. We had a board. It's called an all-executive board. So you're board level, but you're operational staff as well. Yes. You know, but we knew the differences, so we were able to move between the two. So I assumed the role, they gave me the role of general manager, which was operationally everything. Yes. And the man, who was our co-founder partner, he assumed the role of executive director. That was okay, because also too, you know, we as culturally too, the man, because we have that society, is the head. You know, so I was happy for him to assume that role and to do everything operationally, but really be in his shadows. Yes. And even when we're out talking about the business, I'm at the front talking, but he's still the executive director. Yes. Because even though we're all co-founders, we still respected positions. Yes. You know, and then all of a sudden he decided he made the decision he wanted to move to the Gold Coast to his family. And we supported that, you know, good for you, you know, go to your family. Anyway, and the business was having a hard time at that stage, and I was saying to the board, we had a couple of people from outside on the board at that stage, and I said to them, you have to make a decision because I need stuff signed, because I'm pushing the business, but it needs a CEO level or a board, you know, to sign this stuff off. And it was the non-Indigenous director said, but you're the CEO. I'm like, no, I'm the general manager. You know, I'm happy to live in that shadow as the, you know, I'm Island woman, black man, you know, they're out there, you know, that sort of thing, because you still have that thinking. It's a program mindset. Yes, it is that learned behaviour of where you fit in the chain, you know, as well. And so they kicked me out of the boardroom, and the board appointed me CEO. And I went, fantastic. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You know? I love those moments. Yeah. It's like, oh shit, it literally was like, oh my gosh, I'm not a CEO, sort of thing. You know, and all that sort of stuff. And it's actually a real mindset, even though I was doing that role. It was a real mindset. And, you know, and I thought, and then the business was moving along, and then we hit the wall, you know, because we didn't, you know, contracts we thought we had, all of a sudden got pulled. Wow. You know, over like a few days that we had built for the next 9 months, because I didn't understand how to sort of organise things around that. So you're not stuck in that one contract. Yes. Which is an interesting thing with I know from the creative artist industry and a lot of industry businesses coming in, it's the grant funding model. Like so you're relying on this one source of revenue and not diversifying, knowing that you shouldn't be
all eggs in one basket.
Yes.
And people don't learn that when they come into business.
They don't, no.
Yeah.
And even though, at that stage we actually didn't have any government funding for a year because we wanted to test our products.
Yes.
So all of our work was based on fee for service, but it was one of the fee for service contracts that had they just didn't, there was a thing, they didn't sign the contract, you see. They said, no, we're starting. It was Christmas time, so we weren't closed for 2 weeks. During that Christmas period, they sent an email and said, we're not going ahead.
Wow.
And so we came back and went, and we had nothing.
This is like Christmas? Like,
This
what kind of
Christmas-
present is
wow,
this?
proper.
I remember getting something like that. I'm like, wait, you should have told me back in October.
Wow. And we think, what kind of people are this?
Oh
What kind of people do this? Yes.
We're not going to have a Merry Christmas now, are we?
That's right. And because we had not diversified the business at all and put all of our eggs into one basket, and so it was a terrible time because we still had a couple of programs running, and we literally had to lay off the staff, which meant that I had to go back on tools. So I was counselling, I was running workshops, I was doing all of those things, plus trying to run the organisation, but on no pay. Because we had to keep the organisation ticking over. So we all said no pay, as directors, as staff anyway. But I had to go on Centrelink. I had to make the decision then to go on Centrelink because I still had to feed my family.
Yes.
And I still had to pay my mortgage. And so rang up and, and I said, well, I've got no shame because I've got to feed my family.
Yes.
Anyway, and so ran up and I went into Centrelink and I've always been in there with clients, right?
Yes.
And then for a long time. So I went in there and next minute, I'm sitting there and all of the people are screaming, someone there's going to stab the Prime Minister. True God, true God.
True God.
I'm going to have to stab that security. And then someone's out there, baby's crying. So my anxiety just went boom through the roof. And I'm thinking, I can't do this, I can't do it. I can't do this. Anyway, I went down, sat down, some of the people. Anyway, that was all good. First Centrelink campaign would come through, and it wasn't just for me. Everyone come over for dinner, for kai. Come, we go buy steak.
We got paid today.
We got paid
It's
today.
like, I got paid this week. Got paid.
We got paid. Look, come, we all go have kai. Sit down, family now. All
That's
of us.
what we do.
They're proper. Anyway, but they sent me to a job active provider, right?
Yeah.
Job services, and I'm sitting in this room. Big room, and I'm watching the people, I'm reading the paper, because you got to do what you got to do. I'm still working 60, 70 hours a week, but you've got to have these appointments. So I went in there and this young fella says to me, don't even bother. You won't be able to get a job. I'm like, oh, okay, that's why do you say that? We'd already employed 50 people in our organisation into jobs, Anyway, and he said, and the lady sitting on the computer, turned around and she goes, you can't even get a housekeeping job. Now I want to give you an opportunity. And there was another black fellow said, no, I reckon, what about you, Bala, which way? And you reckon, what do you think, sis? Anyway, I'm thinking, that's not a good, we're all in this room waiting. And I said, how do they go with time here? They said they have no concept. Your time means nothing. Your time means nothing. You can be sitting here for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they called me into this big room and there was no privacy. One woman's crying. Another one, I'm sitting there and they're going through the process. And I said, actually, I'm running a business. I'm co-founder of a business. She said, okay. She goes, did you bring your resume? I said, yep, here's your resume. She's looking at my resume and she's looking at me, looking at my resume. She goes, you could have my job. And I said, I don't want your job.
Yeah.
Look, good on you. I'm here for a process because I said, but I'm happy. I'll pack shelves at night. I really don't care what I have to do. I've got to support my family by running a business. And then she goes, but you could have my boss's job. I said, I don't want your boss's job because I had a extensive career. I don't want your boss's job. I have a business, and that sort of stuff. But you know what that experience did for me? It made me even more passionate to help mob. And to help people, because hearing their conversations and hearing these people and what they were saying to me and going, this is such a broken system. It's not a system to actually get people jobs. It's a broken system. And, and hearing that and, even a couple of appointments I had and, hearing them going, oh, well, we don't know how to help you. I said, I'm actually here, I'll pack shelves, I don't care what I've got to do. I said, but I'm telling you now, you've probably got about 3 weeks left and I'm not coming back. Because I knew the business was still in the black, But then we started to generate again,
Yes.
and built that stuff around us. But seeing that system, it drove me so much to do so much work with employment to get people out.
And that's really what Envision did. Let's go into the business. I mean, there are multiple things that I want to ask, but I want to dive into this because I think there's more value that comes out. These experiences led to this creation,
Yes.
your brainchild, the passion, Envision, working towards correcting a system, but also offering what was missing to our mob.
Yes.
So can you explain more a bit about the things that you've done and accomplished through Envision?
Yeah, so we actually wrote all of our programs ourselves, except for the accredited training, but we changed a lot of that to suit the people. But we built programs we knew would work, and we would start with really intensive life skills to help break down what they thought they could do or what they thought they were capable of. And we really challenged them a lot in the first few weeks of their interpretation of themselves and their ability.
Yes.
And this is even people with disabilities. I don't like the word disability because it means we're dissing their ability for me.
Yes.
Because I have disability. I like differing abilities.
Different abilities.
Yeah, we've all got
abilities,
differing abilities. Why can't we focus more on the ability than on the diss?
That's a great term, and we want to be able to push that out there as a positive.
Yes,
different
absolutely.
abilities. That's it.
It is. And so we did that, and we had a lot of employment opportunities because everything was we're having lots of jobs. And so we really started to build these programs on all different types of area for work, but it was quite a rigorous process to get onto our programs. Because we would do an hour assessment first, where we would actually, because we could.
Yes.
And because we were blackfellas talking blackfellas, all didn't matter anyway, we asked them questions everyone else was too scared to ask. If you drink, how much, who with?
Yes.
Drugs, housing, do you actually have a bed? Do you actually have shoes?
Yes.
Or if you do have shoes, what's the likelihood of someone taking your shoes?
Yes.
Because that stops people from going to work.
Absolutely.
Or even coming to program. So it was really, and also your caring responsibilities, gambling.
Yes.
Cards, pokies, all that sort of stuff,
These are really real factors that contribute to a whole thing. And it's true. Not unless you know about it, nobody tries to go off for support or address those things.
That's right. And people say you can't ask us. Everyone was given an option that they could do the questions with us. The assessments one-on-one or confidential. They didn't have to. But we had to, and it was a real explanation about why. Why were we asking? Because if we knew everything up front, we could scaffold the support around them.
Yes.
So even if they were struggling with these issues, didn't mean they couldn't come onto our program. It just means we had to put extra support mechanisms, or maybe not this program, but let's work with you in this other program to get you ready for your employment program.
Yes.
So we did all those stuff, and people used to say, you can't ask those questions, why not? That's our business. We can do whatever we want with our business, and things like that. And then other people saying, thank God you're asking those questions because we can't.
Yes.
We can't probe into that, So and knowing that at the start, we could then build a mentoring around them and the support and how to get them to where they were. Our employment programs weren't easy, by the way. They were very difficult, and they pushed people to places they never thought they would go because we knew that people had the ability. They just didn't know they had the ability. The other thing that we did is we loved them all, not to take them home.
Yes.
When you grow up with no love, no affection, nothing, then you expect it. And a lot of the people didn't know that type of love. And it was a love because you want something good for them.
Yes.
And people say, what do you want in return? No, we just want you to turn up. We do want something in return. We want you to work. We want you to do something for yourself. We love you not to take you home, but because we want the best for you.
Yes.
And people struggled with that too, because they weren't used to that type of care factor. And if you didn't turn up, when they all signed the contract, and if you didn't turn up, if you didn't answer your phone, we're knocking on your door.
Yeah.
We're there. Where are you? That sort of thing. Which, and some of them got a little bit funny about that, but we're like, hang on, you signed a contract.
We'll go back to that.
You signed a contract. But that's then, in the 7 years of business, like in our employment, we in our first few years, we'd employed over 500 people, and we weren't a job active. So we got no kickbacks. Yeah. Because milestone payment, we didn't get
that's true. That's what happens in the JSA, like the job service provider areas. Your kickbacks on the milestones, right? Wow. So you're doing that purely out of passion.
Purely out of passion. You know, we were able to get money in for programs, and we ran really lean.
Yes.
Because all the money went into staffing, because we
Yes.
had mentors and we had a psychologist and we had support workers. You know, all of these things. Because we also work with new arrivals from another man country.
Yes.
You know, so you need to be able to have all these support structures. So we ran very lean, but we were able to do all of these things to help all of those people. And I always tell people, you know, people are like, no, we partnered with those people.
Yes.
Because if you don't partner with them and let them lead their journey and help them along their way, they don't know that they can. And, you know, I was talking to Magistrate Black one day about our program, and he was saying, well, I don't think it should be compulsory.
So who's that magistrate?
Magistrate Trevor Black.
Trevor Black. I know Trevor Black.
Yeah, we were
from
talking...
multiple levels.
Wow.
One from being in front of him in
Wow.
court, and the other one now it is in business. So I like this one. So
Proper, yeah. And he wanted to know about
everybody knows Trevor Black.
Everyone
Mr.
knows
Black,
Trevor.
what's up?
That's right. And he was saying to us, you know, we wanted to be part of the Murray Court and our partnerships and prosperity. And I said to him, well, the thing is, I said, a lot of time people's Centrelink is tied to our program. I said, I don't have a problem with that, because it's about responsibility and consequence.
Yes.
If you don't, people will only know what they only know.
Very true.
And he said, but I don't believe in forcing someone. I said, but how do you expect them to learn something different if they only know what they only know? People will have behaviour and they'll do things which ends them up in front of you.
Yes.
That's the consequence. The consequence to you is sending them to our program, and if they don't participate,
Yes.
then they won't learn something new. And I said to him, in our PIP, there is no alcohol and no drugs. You cannot turn up under the influence. If you don't turn up, there's a consequence. And he said, well, what do? I said, they turn up sober or clean because they don't want to lose their Centrelink.
Yes.
I said, but then when they're doing that, the lights start to come on. And they actually start to build some hope. Because as you know, when you're no good, you've got no hope.
Absolutely.
And that's when all them no good things come in.
Yep.
I said, we only need a flicker of hope. That's it. And then we can start working with them to build that hope in them, to know that actually there is something else.
Yes. Wow, that's powerful. You're putting into that context and offering that other option, especially when you go in front of the magistrate like that, because the only other option is juvie, prison. That's all, and that perpetuates the cycle. You never... It comes back, it just actually enhances all the experiences. So when you come back, you become a part of this rotating system, which we believe is an inherited part of the culture. But that's another conversation we can dive in.
Yeah.
And we can talk about a lot, but I really want to go into the accolades now. You know, building Envision, now you have been recognized. It's funny, you say start out of government and you have to learn all this stuff in business, but you have been recognized, in many prestigious awards as Businesswoman of the Year. Very powerful. You've had like the Telstra Business Award, DAPSIP Indigenous Business Award. What did that recognition do to you? Like, how did you feel, and what did you get out of that?
I think the thing for me, it's really lovely when people nominate you for these awards, because all of a sudden you get an email saying you've been nominated for this award, and you think, who?
Someone's watching.
Who thinks that of me? Because you still have that little voice. You see that in your mind. It's like the imposter syndrome.
Yes. But it's real.
The imposter syndrome.
Trust me, it's real. Still even today, no matter how much accomplishments, it will always be there.
Yeah, because you've got that little, I'm not good enough, and it still sits there, and you think, who would think that of me to nominate me for these awards? And still to this day, I have no idea who nominated me for all of those awards. And then we go through the process, and then you become really proud, because the awards weren't about me, it was about the team, it was about all of us and everything that we did, and it was a real collective effort. I was talking to someone, I said, it's a real collective effort as part of the team, and they said to me, Julieanne, but you lead the team. I said, I do lead the team, but I lead the team as a family. And they're all inclusive, and I love them all, and I appreciate them so much. But for me, every stage I could get onto would mean I could raise more awareness.
Yes.
The more times, and I used to tell my students this all the time, you'll see me on every different type of platform, here and overseas. But the more I can talk about the work that we do, the more people we can help. Because then people start to get more of an understanding, and you're educating them.
Yes.
To not bypass mob, not bypass you, give you a chance.
Yes.
So for me it was, the awards are amazing, and you feel because you come from nothing. you're ground, you're proper.
Yes.
Buzur, you ground, you're nothing, which means not good.
Yes, those buzzer means not good. It's
Not
really
good.
the lowest of lows.
The
Like,
lowest of
I mean,
lowest.
if you see, this is where dirt is, you kind of under dirt.
We're under dirt.
You're under dirt. That's what it means.
Proper. And when you come from that, and then you're up there on the stage getting these awards, you still think, oh my gosh, can't believe I'm here. But then the sense of pride, because it's not just you on that stage, it's your team on that stage, and it's every person that you've helped and partnered with along that way that are standing with you.
Yes.
And I remember with the Cairns Business Women Club Award was the Indigenous Award, and the other lady was Leah Cameron from Marawaloa.
Yes. Another beautiful sister, you know, and really having someone who represents in commercial law and in law.
Deadly.
It's great to see how people do in those spaces. Very necessary.
Wow. And I was walking up stage and I gave her a hug, and I could see she was visibly upset, which is, it's okay. But I got on the stage and I said to her, after I thanked everyone and did all that, and what I said to her, and it's still what I stand at today, that there is no competition. This isn't a competition, because it doesn't matter who gets up. We all get up.
Absolutely.
We all get up because if we didn't sit on the backs of giants, even though I didn't have my own personal role models, we wouldn't have come through the 1967 referendum.
Absolutely.
We would have still been considered plant animal.
Yes.
If we didn't have the backs of giants that we sit on their shoulders.
Yes.
For me standing on that stage, we're all there. We're all leaders.
Yes.
We're all here to try and make a difference. So, the accolade is amazing, but it's for all of us. So,
Amazing. Okay, the journey continues. So Envision, just in context, how successful did it get?
Extremely successful. We grew to about 25 staff. We turned over about $5 million in 7 years.
Wow.
In the business. But, the biggest part was we were able to help, I think at a minimum, about 11,500 people.
11,500
people.
And the impact, that's the giving, and that's what the recognition is.
Yes.
Your journey from what you shared from your childhood to be able to make that transition and then start becoming a prominent career woman.
Yes.
And then to starting something, jumping out of that completely into the deep malu, we say the deep sea, and diving and swimming amongst sharks. If you say, let's use the analogy, swim amongst sharks to create something that is impacted over 11,500 people.
Yes.
And it's time. And it's still, and your work is still going. I mean, your story right now, hopefully whoever, like all the thousands and thousands of people watching will be inspired by that. And now your journey, we had another brother on this, here at the Black Table, Balamari Sela, our brother. You're working with him now in Tagai Management, Tagai Consultant Management.
Yes.
Management Consultants, let me say that again, Tagai Management Consultants. And how's that work? How's that journey been?
It's deadly. And, I met Bala Murray probably about 3 odd years ago. Yeah. And he always tells the story about how he met me. They were about to announce another parliamentary,
Does it get more flamboyant every time he says it?
Oh, wow, proper. And he always tells the story.
He's a good storyteller, that brother.
I know. You reckon we were at this thing and the Premier's up there announcing this new, reference group, which I was on, up on stage and stuff like that. And we walked out because a few people to go and have a coffee. Anyway, and there was all these people, and all wanting to talk. And I saw this fella sort of like beside me at the lights, and I reckon, oh, hello, because you get attracted to your own mob, and we start talking, introduced himself. And he always tells a story about, we're moving down, he says, and Julieanne has this harem of people, all of these people waiting to talk to her, but me and him, we're just talking, because same spirit, see?
Yes.
Same spirit. And from that night on, we just instantaneously had a connection.
Deadly.
And so we were working behind the backgrounds, we were developing program, we were going to deliver all sorts of stuff, because I was in advanced technology and he really loved that. Anyway, and when I made the decision about Envision, because I was at a different stage in my life, I had to do something different.
Have to, yes.
No sorry story, no bad story here. People think when business closes, it's always got to be a bad story.
No.
But it's not. It's
just a different phase in life.
It's just a different phase in life. And we were both on a CSIRO and QUT and Charles Darwin Uni panel around Indigenous projects anyway. And
That's one thing I find about you too. Says you sit on numerous boards.
we do.
We can dive into that, but that'll probably take another
That'll be
hour.
another hour proper. You know?
Sorry,
and he
continue.
made me go on that one too because it was about innovation. Anyway, and Charles Darwin Uni rang me up and said, look, we've got this option, you know, we want you to consider being innovators in residence. You know, so I rang up Vala and I reckon, oh, which way? What do you think about this? Because, you know, we're on the journey, you know. I reckon, all right. And when he sort of, you know, we've helped me through the journey because it was to close Envision was one of the hardest things I ever had to decide to do, you know, with everyone and work to do that. And it really was a hard thing for me. But then when this came up and I said to him, well, we're already going to do things, so why not I just come with you, you know?
Wow.
Under him, and he said, yeah, of course, you know, of course.
That's how we do that. It's like someone is going out in a dinghy to hunt. Can I come? Yeah, come on.
Of course. It was like
jump.
that. So literally, you know, Envision was closing, and then next minute we were on the journey together and under his business. And, you know, I'm very awe-inspired by Bala because of what he's done by himself for all of those years, 6 years, and his clientele are different to mine.
Yes.
You know, because I'm from the not-for-profit, even though I've worked in, you know, different locations across the world, and his world was different, you know, to mine. So I was bringing a difference to him and he was bringing a difference to me. And, you know, opening up the world of what we do around procurement and supply chain. And he's like, no one understands, as a Torres Strait Islander, he's led projects no other First Nations person has ever done. But he's humble.
Yes.
So he doesn't, I'm pushing him from behind going, you need to, it's not that he's not proud, he's just humble.
Yes.
You know, and then when he's opened my world to this world of unbelief, of working in social procurement of millions of dollars, you know, and things like that. So we just clicked and we just share the same value system. Because in business, like I said, you can have people come to you that don't share the same values.
Absolutely.
We shared the same values, you know, and that sort of thing. So we've been on the journey almost a year now, and his business is incredible.
It is. And
Yes.
OBHI is proud to now like, and said that we were there, like, partnering with Tagai. The great work that you guys are doing, we're excited. So it's just, I think it'll be something amazing for the future.
Yes.
Now, one thing I know, and this is, we're going to get a bit geeky here. We're going to the space of technology.
Yes.
You know, most people see me as a musician and an artist, and you for running an organization, but don't know we have this passion in this world of technology about what it can do to contribute to enhance our people. And in particular, when we met, we were talking around the world of mixed reality. And that is like a very, I know, a strong passion of yours, and you've done amazing work in that area.
Wow.
So technology, mixed reality.
Yes.
You've done some profound work, not only in Australia, but overseas with it as well. Tell us how you got into that, and then what do you see the value of being in this space, especially now, like, you know, for our people?
Wow. So technology, I had a colleague ring me up and said, have you heard of virtual reality? And I'm a real doogie at things like that, like proper. And I'm like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. But she started to talk about building in 2D and 3D realities. And she said that they were working with a firm who were ex-construction engineers, and they said they can actually break down. I said, explain to me if you're doing a mining project in its new. She said they can break down using 2D reality to a daily process of how that site is going to affect that country, right down to how the leaves could change on the tree. And they could do this, you know, in real time. And so my mind thinks, you know, oh my gosh, this is a game changer for negotiations, where we will actually be at the table for real, because we can see, because they'll give you an environmental impact statement, and it's so big, who reads those?
Yes.
But if we can create that in that,
who reads those?
You know, and I've seen a lot of negotiations go bad because of the lack of understanding.
Yes.
And things get hidden, where we could use this tech to actually project it onto a screen and people can see what's going to happen.
Yes.
I said, all right, you've got me interested. So I flew to Brisbane and I was yarning with the engineers and said, no, that's deadly. She goes, well, let's try some virtual reality. So we jumped into a headset, and I was actually in a tunnel boring machine.
Yep.
I'd never even heard of a tunnel boring machine. Doogie said, I can't, Murray Street girl. Anyway, so I'm in this tunnel boring machine, and it was built to scale, and it was like I was in there. So everything I could feel around, confined spaces or height, I'm feeling it emotively, and I was there in there. So when I come out, I go, holy shit, this is going to change the face of how we do business, how we do anything. So from that second, I was hooked, because we're visual people.
Yes.
We are visual learners. We learn by experience mostly, and doing this. And we always went, oh my gosh, imagine what we could do, to do this. Anyway, so, we start to get the word out there around virtual reality, and start to learn more. And then I want to know, for me, what happens on a neuroscience perspective to your brain in technology. And with virtual reality, when you're in virtual reality, your brain can have another thought, but it'll keep bringing you back to what you're watching, because nothing is occupying you. Like we sit here, we could be thinking like, it's nearly lunchtime, I'm hungry.
Exactly.
Well, what's happening out that window? Things like that. So you're taking in about 30% retention.
Yes.
Virtual reality, it's like 95% because you've got nothing to occupy.
You're immersed. It's
you're
all
completely
other senses.
immersed, definitely. Yes. So what that's doing is imprinting on your brain.
Yes.
Literally imprinting on your brain. There's good and bad, of course, with technology. We always focus on the good. Anyway, we were talking to the government about it, and then, they'd introduced Indigenous Advancement Strategy. And they said, so we've gone, let's just write this a massive application and embed advanced technology right through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And we flew to Canberra, Warren Ench flew, we all flew to Canberra. We met with people too, because we thought they're going to get this application and know nothing about what we're talking about.
Yes.
They still didn't get it, but that's okay. We took it down, we had yarns and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so actually had one employer who was offering 1,000 jobs, but we were going to build the training in immersive technology. So they were getting the best of both worlds and all sorts of things. But what happened was they came back, and I got a call to say, look, you've got a foot in the door.
Yes.
I said, what did he said, you got a foot in the door. I said, what did they fund? He said, they funded your bus, because we thought, we're going to build tech. We needed to get it out to the remotest locations.
Yes.
So, like 3 weeks before, we thought we'll put in an idea of having a bus.
Yes.
Take the tech out. He goes, they funded the bus. I'm like, what about the assets? He said, they've just funded the bus. And I've gone, why would they do that? Yeah. He said, look, you got a foot in the door. I said, oh, no. So I'm not thankful. I'm thankful. Thank you. And we found out we were one of the very few First Nations business to get any of our Indigenous Advancement Strategy. The glory of it was we got $1.3 million to build that. But, then I'm thinking, well, what can we do with that money? Yes. So that's when we built our first virtual reality products around employment. And, because we were so immersed in employment, and we thought, well, how do we start to break down the barriers of what people think they can do using this technology? So we built 5 immersive themes. But we got real people, we got real mob, and we filmed them in a studio with a green screen. Yes. But we 3D animated the environment. So one of them was mining. So Rachel from Babinda used to drive one of the biggest excavators in the world, young Murray woman. Yes. And so, but we actually built the mining environment all to scale. Yes. So the big mining truck, the excavator, was all built 100% to how it would be if you were sitting in there. Wow. So, so people were feeling emotively what they would feel like, looking at what was happening, yes, across all of the themes. And it was amazing what was happening, because there was a few things that happened. And the bus, we had to build this bus that was all terrain, because we wanted it to go to the most remotest locations in Australia and not be held back, because we wanted this one first and foremost, we wanted people to understand employment opportunities. Yes. We wanted them to actually be exposed to technology. Yes. And then we wanted to help pathway them after what they saw. Yes. So the bus was the perfect option. So we'd built that, but we had certain type of servers built into the bus, so that when people were in the virtual reality, first in the world, no one had ever done this. Yes. And it was a small Indigenous organisation from Cairns who had built this world first, bus to go and do these things. But when people were in the bus and they were into the virtual reality, so it's visually stimulated. So once you're in, it turns on. Yes. But it instantly links into the server. So at any given second, we could track where that person was watching.
Wow.
So it didn't matter. And the reason for that is because we call them storytellers.
Yep.
So they would come out and we would get a user focus report, which would tell us exactly where they were looking and where they would spend more time focusing. Now, if people might come out and say, I loved mining because it's so immersive, the trucks, the everything. But they were only really focused on that storyteller for 25%. But in health was an Aboriginal doctor talking about, not so much about the medical degree, but why it was important to help his mob with health.
Yes.
But they could have been focused on him for 75% of the time.
Yep.
But that's where the real conversations come out.
Yes.
Why were you focused on this fella here for 75%? Because I want to help my mob.
Exactly.
Such and such has got this health issue.
Incredible.
You know, and that's how we used that type of technology to actually help to pathway them into areas that they were really interested in.
Yes.
And people were coming out of the woodworks. People had never engaged with the CDP providers ever. You know, They might be on outstation. All of a sudden they'd hear we were coming because we sent out the word, see? They'd start coming out the woodworks and they'd never ever been engaged in anything. Would come, sit down, have yarn, cup of tea, go into the VR, come out, have a conversation. Next thing they were engaged in program because we started to stimulate things in their brain that were asleep. Because our brain is powerful. But sometimes parts of our brain can go to sleep. They're not dead. They're just asleep.
Just asleep.
Yeah,
Laying
or
dormant.
sometimes they're just in a slack mode.
Yes. Well, I mean, when you go to most of these places where you have to go through a service provider or something like that, what is the method of communication they have? Paper. I'm like, who reads? I don't read.
That's right. Proper.
read.
Proper. Yeah.
Amazing. One thing I want to put out there, the branding. What did they name the bus?
The Ollie. The bus was called Ollie. So it would have Ollie written on top of the bus.
Yeah.
But people would call it the goggle bus.
The goggle bus. So it became a branding. It's like the goggle bus.
And kids would run down the road after the bus. Here come the goggle bus, the goggle bus.
That's so cool.
Proper, yeah. But it was interesting because then you would have a group of people would come in and from people saying, it must be a demographic of age. No, we had from 4 to 85.
Yes.
And the older people were saying to us, this is what our mob needs.
Absolutely.
This is what's going to help them. And then we would have a group of people say, well, how do you build that? How can I learn how to build that? Because the other thing for me was I would have to go to big cities to get my tech built.
Yes.
We would project manage and do all that sort of stuff. But my whole thing is, well, why can't we train our own mob?
Yes.
Because we're actually the first inventors.
Absolutely.
We actually were inventing things 60,000 years ago, and we were the first entrepreneurs. We just weren't called that.
Yes.
So being the first inventors, we had our own research, we had our own science to things. So therefore, this progression for me is, why can't we teach mob how to do that?
Yes.
And for them to start to develop, because then that's a business opportunity for them. So after doing that, and the success of that was incredible, still today, that we realised that, hang on, we've got a market here. Because building tech is not easy. Project managing technology builds are not easy. And we learnt a lot through that. A lot of pain, but because at that stage I'd understood business and I understood contracts and ownership, all of those things, that we realised that, and hardly anyone knows they need advanced technology.
Yes.
To enhance what they're doing. So then I'm having conversations going, imagine if you did that. What about that? And then they're going, oh yeah, what about that? So then we actually started to become a known entity to start building and project managing technology builds for other people, because we would bring about, it's not just about the product, it's about the story.
Yes.
And that's the basis of what we were doing, and what we're doing with Tagai as well, with our advanced futures.
That's what I was going to ask,
Yes.
The next part of the journey now with Tagai.
Yes.
But do continue?
Yeah, so we started to build other, project managed builds for other people. And it's taken me overseas, and to talk about that. But people are more drawn in by the cultural story and how technology fits into that.
Yes.
And how it can literally change a person's thought in a second about what they could. But it leapfrogs them. That's the glory of technology. And when we first were coming into that, it was there, but it wasn't. It was kind of an unknown.
Yes.
So it's kind of like we were talking another language. And, when we're at big shows and stuff like that, people would first get shocked. We're doing advanced technology. But then they would go, well, where are you from? We're from Cairns. Where's Cairns? This is in Melbourne, places like far north Queensland. And who's your company, Envision? And we're like, we're an Indigenous, or they're like, what? So we're still even breaking down those stories that an Indigenous business could have the capability to do things like that, So then out of that comes your own ideas of what you want to do and how you're going to impact, with people using technology. Because, we have things like we talked about before about shame, and there's taboo subjects. People don't want to talk about around health.
Absolutely.
You see, and so we can build now, which is stuff we're doing with Tagai, is working towards our advanced future of building our own products as well as for other people. And it's about debunking those shame myths and helping people to get over issues, and because you're in a captive audience.
Yes.
So we can bring a captive story to reach that captive audience, and no one knows what they're watching.
Incredible. And that's why I love this conversation, because we can see how technology can contribute to the social good, but also enhance through resources, how we can better communicate, but also address issues that's in the community and connecting, engagement. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
My sister has been an incredible story. Before I go, I always ask, is there any way people can get in touch with you if they have any questions, like your social media or businesses and organization wants to get in touch with you about what you're doing with Tagai? How can they get a hold of you?
Oh, absolutely. The website, Tagai Management Consultants, plus we're across every social media platform as well.
Yep.
You can contact us through that. So very easy. Plus just Google us, yeah. But if I can leave one passing comment for people is, don't be defined by your past. Don't be defined. Your past doesn't define you.
Yes.
It only is a chapter in your book.
Yes.
And people will say to me, no, but my past makes me who I am. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make you who you are, but it helps to grow who you are and helps you to empathise with other things and situations. But you can be whatever you choose you want to be, and don't let anything sort of hold you back.
Thank you. Well, I thank you for that. I will just throw it in there just so I can add that editor back into it, because I usually ask that question if you don't mind.
Sorry.
So if there was one key value, I always ask people who sit at, and you can answer this again if you want to, okay? If there's, I like to, leave someone with a gem from your experience in life. If there was one key value that you were able to leave here at the black table to our people who's going to be watching this, what would that be?
Actually, it probably is another thing, is if we are from the oldest living culture in the world, then how can we not be successful? But successful is only defined by you, not by anyone else. So regardless of what you do, it's successful. Thank you.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing great things, wonderful things in your journey, and inviting you back to the black table if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, guys. I have been your host, Balamau Power. It is always a pleasure to be speaking to you guys out there. The sister Julieanne Lambourne, amazing story. Thank you very much for following. You can check out, subscribe, check out the links. Go join Mau Power on every social media. And I will say it from here at Power Circle. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and stay connected. That's all.